And hello everyone, welcome back to another C++ tutorial. Today we'll be covering output and comments. So let's start with comments because I feel they're probably the most helpful thing you can learn in any programming language. So a comment is something that does not get read by the computer. For example, let's say we want to say the below gives an output, right? And then and then here we can say cout hello world, and we have already talked about this, but we will be covering it again today. So if you don't quite understand, don't worry, we will be covering this again. Now, as you can see, we already get red lines here because it doesn't understand what's here. But if we were to try and compile and run this, then we would get an error because it doesn't understand. This is not readable code. This is code that's readable to us though. And as you're working in projects or maybe following along with tutorials, making your own little files, you can create comments to allow you to kind of understand what was happening here. For example, we can put 2 slashes here, and that will, as you can see, already blur it out inside of my IDE. And it will make it a comment. So there's no more red lines because this means this is a comment and it should not be read by the compiler or by that machine that's executing this. So if we run this, then we won't get any problems because it's now a comment. You can have comments anywhere and how many you want. It doesn't quite matter. I can put these anywhere. It doesn't matter where I put it. As long as we have comments, it's great. Save that. We can run it without any problems because remember, comments don't get read by the program. Now, take note, if I were to put a comment here and type something, this would also become a comment because anything behind these double slashes is considered a comment. So nothing after that is being read. So just take note of that. Now that is a single line comment. It's called a single line comment because if we just clean up here a bit, if we go to the next line, we can start typing again. And if we want to create another comment, we'll have to do that. So for every line, you'll have to need those 2 slashes, and it's just kind of a mess if you have a lot of lines. So what you can do is you can create a multi-line comment. A multi-line comment is a slash, star, star, slash. Everything between these is considered a comment. So this can span multiple lines. So a multi-line comment, because it can span multiple lines without you needing to be slash or star or anything like that the whole time. So this is a multi-line comment. You can use them however you please. And yeah, just take note that comments exist because they are very important. Even when you get into like these big companies like Google, comments are very important because then the next guy can be like, oh, that's what's going on here. So it just helps explaining and keeping you and the other guy up to date. Cool, now let's talk about outputs. So we are going to talk about 2 ways to get output. First, we're going to talk about cout. Cout stands for console output because here, this is the console. If we want to put something out of there, we use cout. So cout, and then we use these to basically say, send all of this data in to cout. And take note of our semicolon there. They're very important, needed on the end of every line or not every line, every command rather. So just keep that in mind. There are some exceptions though, but for right now, take note that you do need these. Anyhow, so we're saying console output and hello world. That's what we're getting here. We can also, at the end here, we can do this and say end out. And this means end the line. So it will basically go to the next line. If we were to compile and run this, as you can see, now this doesn't happen anymore. It goes straight down. You can still pass things in after end line because remember, it just gives you an extra line. So you can put more things here if you wanted to. But it's usually recommended that instead of using an end line in the middle of your thing, end line should only be at the end, here at the end of your sentence or your end of your output. So instead of using end lines in the middle of your output, what you should do is you should use a \n. And this is an escape character. An escape character basically just means do something that you can't do normally, because we can't say enter. That is not allowed. So how else should we say go to the next line? We use /n, which means create new line. And remember, it's a \n, not a /. And it's not this, it is this. Anyhow, now we can type our things and it will be on the next line. And because we have our end line at the end, our next line won't have anything after it like it had here. So yeah, this is the first way to give like outputs, and you can like mix and match more text if you wanted to. For example, my name is, and then add more here, Steve, for example. And then we can also maybe put another \n here because it's allowed anywhere. And if we were to run this, then we'll get hello world, SDSD, my name is Steve. So these basically just means send forward, add to that. But you don't have to worry too much about these right now. You'll kind of get used to them as we go on. So yeah, that is the first method of getting output, and that's the C++ method. There's also a C method that some people still enjoy using. So I'm going to just show you what it is so you can also kind of understand it. But also before we go, take note, you can also pass in numbers here. So for example, 22, that's perfectly fine. Run that. And here we go, Steve 22. Okay, now that we know that, let's remove this. So this method is called PrintF. So PrintF is basically the C way of outputting text to the screen, because remember, C++ is basically C, but improved. So you can still use a lot of C things inside of C++. So in here, we can specify some text, maybe like hello world. And this is perfectly fine if you want to get some output. Save that. Run it here. Take note, it will not get a new line, so as you can see there. So you will have to specify the \n. So if we go here and we run it, then we'll get a new line. Now you might be thinking, okay, but why use cout instead of printf? Well, it's kind of up to personal preference these days. Usually printf doesn't really get used that much in C++ because it's more of a C method to do things, but you can still use it. One of the reasons why people do like this is because, let's say for example, whoops, I hate it when it does that. Just close there and close there. Here I can say how old I am. Maybe I am, and then I want to specify a number. And to do that, I can use, let's say, a %i, which basically means a number. And we're just going to add a \n here. It's not required to add this \n. This is just for a new line. But this %i basically means we're going to pass some data in and put it here. So here we can maybe say like 19 because I am 19. Run that. And take note, I have there, I am 19. So I have a comma here after the double quotes. Remember, double quotes are very important because double and single quotes are not the same. So you should always use double quotes if possible. Otherwise you might get errors. Anyhow. So this %i just basically means put a number in here. So we can put this number in there, as you can see there, and then it gets put in there. This is very useful for later on, but it's just good that you know this, because we wouldn't be using printf, but if you do like to use printf, then this will allow you to kind of get the basics around it. Now, so with cout, it would be like this, cout, and we send our data in, I am, and then we send our data in, 19, endal. You don't have to use endal at the end. You can just use a \n if you want, but I find it easier or just more comfortable to use endal. Run that and we'll get the same output, but with different ways of doing it. So it's up to you which you prefer. I prefer the cout method because that's just kind of what I learned and what I liked the most, but you can use printf if you feel you like it. So thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed and can now get some output with C++. And I'll see you all again in the next C++ tutorial.